Trump-Vance feud triggers shock advisor, resignation as career collapses. A MAGA civil war is erupting right now, and it is not just Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie and Tucker Carlson who will become very relevant as this story develops. No, the real center of this civil war is a conflict that does not get nearly enough attention, and that is the deepening tension between Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. Two people who share quite a bit in common, starting with the fact that they will always prioritize their own interests above everything else. And right now, those interests are beginning to collide. Because while Donald Trump is choosing to wage war on Iran, pushed forward by the influence of Netanyahu and Lindsey Graham, combined with his own capacity to profit through insider trading and a total indifference to American casualties, J.D. Vance is quietly unraveling. He is distancing himself from the war behind the scenes, attempting to protect whatever political future he still has. And that silent resistance is putting him on a direct collision course with Trump. That collision just produced a resignation bombshell that is deeply embarrassing for Donald Trump and is driving the knife even further into the MAGA civil war unfolding between Vance, Trump, Greene, Tucker, Massie, and more. We will get into all of it, but we need to begin with what is truly at stake for Vance, his historically terrible approval numbers, and why this particular resignation is as damning as it is.
Just take a look at this. Take a look here. Look at this. Trump is focusing too much on foreign matters. 58% of Americans believe that the Trump administration is too focused on things abroad. What they believe also is there's been too little focus on domestic matters. Look at this. 60% of Americans believe there's been too little focus on domestic matters. Now, of course, the Iran war is part of this, right? But this is just part of a larger picture, the belief that the presidency and the administration of Donald Trump in his second term, they have taken their eye off the ball. They are looking abroad when Americans want them looking at home. And of course, J.D. Vance going and campaigning for the prime minister of another country that is pretty far away from here is just part of a larger picture that the American people dislike.
So Vice President Vance, how's he doing? How popular?
Yeah, J.D. Vance is not doing too hot to trot at this point. Look at this. Okay, J.D. Vance's net popularity, this should actually be a plus. There we go. Plus 3 points. Then we go to minus 18 points at this point. That is a 21-point swing in the wrong direction. J.D. Vance started off his vice presidency in plus territory, and now he is in negative territory. Down he goes, J.D. Vance getting dragged down along with the President of the United States.
Where does he rank? Maybe along with, maybe because of that. Yeah. We don't know that. But where does he rank among other vice presidents?
Yeah, you look at other vice presidents. Look at this. At this point in their vice presidency, historically the worst at this point in a vice presidency. Kamala Harris was at minus 13. Mike Pence was at minus 7. Joe Biden was at plus 4. Dick Cheney was at plus 37. This might be part of a longer trend of vice presidents becoming unpopular, but we can say J.D. Vance is historically the least popular vice president at this point in their vice presidency.
Yeah, that is notable. It may just be a thing where Americans over time, we just hate everything.
Yeah, that's true.
Increasingly hate
But
everything.
I love you.
Thank you. I appreciate that, even though a lot less than you did in 2002.
J.D. Vance is historically unpopular. And let me put that in some context. Everyone serving inside Donald Trump's administration, simply by association, is sitting at record low approval figures. But people like Vance and especially Hegseth are in a uniquely difficult spot because of how directly connected they are to this war. Hegseth is out there reciting Pulp Fiction lines and questioning whether people at the Pentagon even speak English during what can only be described as bizarre motivational speeches. And Vance, of course, has become the face of a completely failed diplomatic process. Their attachment to this conflict has made their unpopularity especially severe. So this is not simply a matter of people disliking J.D. Vance because he serves in the Trump administration. It goes much deeper than that. He is genuinely a difficult person to sympathize with, and he is now tied to a war that he spent virtually his entire political career opposing. And let us be honest, that was a very short career. That brevity tells you something. J.D. Vance does not operate from a place of strong conviction. He reads the room and moves in whatever direction the MAGA current seems to be flowing. And I do think he recognizes that the MAGA base wants an anti-interventionist, America First posture, even if they rarely follow through on it in reality. That is exactly why voices like Massie, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and especially Tucker Carlson carry so much weight with that crowd. And Tucker's stance on this war has been impossible to ignore. He went on his show and stated plainly that anyone inside the White House or the military has a moral obligation to refuse if ordered to deploy weapons of mass destruction against the population of Iran. He said those individuals need to look the president directly in the eye and say no. He urged them to threaten resignation and to use every legal option at their disposal to stop what he called a completely insane situation. He said that if he personally were given that order, he would refuse to carry it out. That is not a minor disagreement. That is a direct public challenge to a sitting president from someone who was once one of his most dependable media allies. And that challenge landed right at the heart of the breaking story surrounding Vance and his rapidly deteriorating relationship with Trump. So we know Tucker has been in open conflict with Trump while also remaining closely tied to both Trump and Vance in different ways. Tucker was in fact one of the most vocal voices pushing Donald Trump to select J.D. Vance for the ticket. His argument was that if Trump chose someone like Nikki Haley or Marco Rubio, someone from the conventional establishment lane, the so-called deep state would find a way to neutralize him and install a more controllable figure, which is a bit ironic given how completely Donald Trump has delivered for the deep state, the Israel lobby, Wall Street, big tech, and establishment Republicans. He has handed them virtually everything they wanted, but Tucker was deeply close to Vance. So close, in fact, that Tucker Carlson's own son was working inside Vance's office, or I should say was working there, because Tucker Carlson, the man Donald Trump now publicly labels stupid and low IQ, his son held a position in that office right up until today. He worked for Vance, and that departure is the resignation bombshell at the center of this MAGA civil war. J.D. Vance loses a top aide amid the feud with Trump. Buckley Carlson's father, Tucker, is broadly understood to be the single person most responsible for launching Vance's political career, and now his son is walking out the door. Buckley Carlson, the 28-year-old son of Tucker Carlson, resigned from his role as a press assistant in the vice president's office, according to Politico. He had been in that role since January 2025, just weeks after the inauguration. The vice president's office claimed he had originally intended to leave back in December but stayed on to ensure a smooth transition. It is now April. That timeline does not quite hold up, and the timing of Buckley's exit raises real questions, given that Trump has been in a sustained fury at his father over Tucker's vocal opposition to the Iran war. Tucker has been among the loudest conservative media voices speaking out against this conflict since it began on February 28th. He has opposed U.S. military intervention in the Middle East throughout his career and has spent recent weeks using his online platform to directly criticize Trump for choosing to escalate. Trump responded by calling him overrated and low IQ. Tucker responded by turning those insults into merchandise, selling low IQ shirts and hats. So Tucker Carlson's son is now leaving J.D. Vance's wing of the White House. What makes this so significant is that Tucker did not simply advocate for Vance to become vice president. He helped construct Vance's entire public identity on the right, dating back to his Senate run, and even before that. Tucker brought him on constantly, amplified his name, helped shape the brand. His son walking away now signals that the fracture inside MAGA may run far deeper than the occasional anti-interventionist talking points Vance still deploys. Because Vance keeps making quiet concessions, allowing Trump to steamroll the ideology he once claimed to represent, the very positions he campaigned on. But if Tucker, who helped build so much of what Vance politically is, if his son is now resigning, the gap between them may already be beyond repair. J.D. Vance may not be able to win back what he has lost with the MAGA coalition he believed he would one day lead. Right now, Tucker Carlson holds more actual influence inside that movement than Vance does. That is not a provocative take. That is just the current reality. In any honest projection of the 2028 Republican primary, Tucker has a stronger hand than J.D. Vance. This resignation makes clear that Vance has serious ground to recover and no obvious path to do it. He has no loyal base, he has no devoted following the way Trump does. To win any of them back, he will almost certainly have to throw Trump under the bus at some point. And so the MAGA infighting continues its cycle. Democrats should not be watching this from the sidelines. We should be amplifying it. We should be keeping it in the conversation, the same way Senator Jon Ossoff has been doing, grounding our opposition to this war not only in constitutional arguments or carefully worded letters, but in genuine moral clarity and a real reckoning with how our party approaches these pointless, endless conflicts. You are going to want to stay with us for everything that comes next.
But today we face a president who's embarked on this unmistakable project not to lead us, but to rule us as subjects. He deifies and enriches himself as he adorns the White House in gold and raises a massive force of masked federal police. The president who once tried to overturn his own defeat now tries to jail elected leaders of the opposition, prosecute Americans who defy or criticize him, and seize control of elections nationwide. As he indulges in careless militarism around the world, he plans a monument to himself so tall it will disrupt air traffic into our nation's capital. For all this, the founders of our republic must be turning in their graves. But they gave us the tools to fix it. Freedoms guaranteed at our founding, made real through struggle and sacrifice in places like Seneca Falls and Selma and Stonewall. And of all the freedoms at stake, none is more powerful or precious than the right to vote. In Georgia, we know better than anyone that the election deniers are on the march. The Fulton County raid, the executive order attacking voting, the MAGA loyalists on our state election board, they've made their plans very clear. But Georgians are prepared to answer with a mobilization so massive and with a defense of voting rights so fierce that no plot against the franchise can foil the will of the people. Because how foolish of them to come to the cradle of the civil rights movement, to spread those lies and seize our ballots. How foolish to launch an attack on voting rights here in Georgia at the political and spiritual center of the very black history they seek to erase. Augusta, their attacks only strengthen our resolve. And if all of us here do what we must do, the sound of feet marching to the polls this fall will be heard in every corner of our state and all the way on high where Congressman Lewis will look down and see a job well done. Augusta, are you ready to win? A wave is building. The kind that comes once a generation when people have been pushed too far and they decide all at once and all together that enough is enough. Across Georgia, more and more of every background and belief reject this chaos and corruption. It's not just Democrats and independents. Republicans pull me aside or they call me on the phone and they tell me they're voting for a Democrat for the first time in their lives. And we welcome them. Five years ago, in the early hours of January 6th, 2021, right before the president's mob sacked the Capitol, hope broke out across the nation because the people of Georgia had spoken so clearly. Because Georgia sent the young Jewish son of an immigrant and a black pastor who holds Dr. King's pulpit at Ebenezer Baptist Church to the U.S. Senate. We did it before. We'll do it again. And as long as we don't give in to doubt or despair or division, our victories will be so decisive that no half-baked plot hatched in the White House will foil the will of the people. Because history is calling the question, what kind of people are we? And Georgia is ready to answer once again. that the measure of our success is not how many of the poorest and most vulnerable families we hunt down and shackle and imprison and deport. The measure of our success is whether each generation achieves greater health and prosperity than the last, and whether we live up to the promise of equal justice for all. Georgia is ready to send a message that we will bow to no king. So Augusta, are you ready to work? Are you ready to win? Let's get it done. Thank you so much, Augusta. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
This is exactly how Democrats need to sound, and this is the message that can actually win in 2028. And honestly, it is the message J.D. Vance wishes he could deliver himself. Not because he would act on it, because if he were truly willing to act on it, he would be far more openly resistant to Trump right now. But it is the posture he would love to project. Because if Tucker is pulling away, if Tucker's son is walking away, if the MAGA base is drifting, and if Trump himself is leaving Vance politically stranded, then J.D. Vance is left with nothing at all. And that should give you a genuine reason to feel hopeful. We will keep covering every development on this show. If you want to support that work, hit the subscribe button and leave a like. If you made it all the way to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep pushing forward. Do not let them wear you down.